Hey loves, it's Britt, and in this video I'm talking about Mars in conjunct or quincunx to Saturn in Synastry. So this aspect can definitely produce an awkward feeling between two people, even an awkwardness in getting together sexually. If this is a sexual relationship, this aspect can definitely show that there's differences of timing, and the Mars person, even if they're usually, more forward or more direct in a sexual or romantic sense, they can definitely feel stalled or blocked or kind of awkward in expressing that part of themselves with a Saturn person. So it can definitely show a sexual block, and it can even show a block in getting together in any way. So even if this is a working partnership or a friendship or whatever kind of relationship this is, it shows that when you are trying to work together on something, get something done, it can definitely seem like there's even external factors beyond your control that are maybe blocking you from being together. That can sometimes be an example of Mars quincunx Saturn, is that it's like maybe you want to get together sexually, or maybe you want to get together as in the form of business partnerships, friendship, whatever, but for whatever reason, there's some sort of outside block. There's some reason, maybe it's time, Saturn, you don't have enough time. Maybe it's, some kind of difference in like your lifestyles that is preventing you from being together. So it can be something like that. Now, no one aspect is going to make or break a connection. So, like, for example, I have Mars in conjunct or quincunx Saturn in my natal chart. So, if you have this in your natal chart, when you have like Mars conjunct Mars with someone, you'll also have Mars in conjunct to Saturn. So, like, there's going to be other aspects going on. So, what you would hope for is that the person's Mars specifically has another positive aspect, either a conjunction or a trine or sextile or something going on that alleviates some of the pressure of this in conjunction. So yeah, you'd hope there's another aspect going on here to kind of show that they can express their Mars, because with this aspect it'll show that there's difficulty in expressing their Mars. And this might be the most difficult aspect of all between Mars and Saturn, because the inconjunct or the quincunx aspect is a very internal kind of crisis energy. So it can cause the Mars person to go through a kind of psychological crisis in expressing their Mars. So they can definitely be going through kind of like a confidence crisis, or like even if they're usually very confident, it's like they get together with this person, they can feel very insecure, very ill at ease with this kind of undefined uncertainty of the connection and of the other person. Now, a part of it can be fear that the Saturn person has, in some cases, like a power over them. They can sense that they're weak to the Saturn person's influence. And, the Saturn person can even become, like, if they show more domineering tendencies, they can become kind of like a dictator, or like they can definitely alter the course of the Mars person's life for the worse, like for worse. And so you want to really look at the rest of the synastry, like if there's other, like if the Saturn person also has like plutonic influence over the Mars person, you just want to be aware that the Mars person is kind of like weak to the Saturn person. So it's interesting when our natal Mars is in conjunct or quincunx to someone's Saturn or even Neptune or Pluto, or your like, the quincunx energy is so awkward that it's like the outer planet person has this like power over the Mars person to kind of like make them act even like a puppet in certain ways. Like, that might sound weird, but like it's just a weird thing that happens with these quincunxes to Mars, where it definitely can weaken the Mars person's sense of self-esteem and sense of like ability to like act in the primal ways that they know they need to act in order to, pursue what they desire in life. Mars is like the outward masculine energy, the like go up and get it, the first house, like physical energy and like competitive energy. And so, specifically with Mars in conjunct to Saturn, the Saturn person can have the Mars person just questioning all of this. And it could even, like, in the worst cases, lead to, like, the Mars person having a health problem or having, like, some sort of identity crisis. Or, like, if the Mars person's a man, going through a crisis of not feeling manly or something like that. And it's not that the Saturn person is intending to do any of this. It's not really like that they consciously mean to exert this sort of negative influence over Mars, but they just often do. And a lot of it can come from, in this case, parental upbringing. Like the Saturn person's upbringing, the Saturn person's like inner parent is just a bit too critical of the way the Mars person acts. And a part of it can be even a little bit of jealousy when they see the strength, they see the spontaneity, they see like this almost like childlike enthusiasm of the Mars person, and it makes them nervous. It makes them judgy. It makes them want to shut it down in kind of like a parental role. So you'll see the Saturn person kind of acting like the harsh critical parent of the Mars person. But sometimes this isn't even going to be overt. It's just going to be in like a subtle energy. So like it's a bit different than when we have Mars Saturn conjunct or Mars Saturn even in square or opposition, where the Saturn person does behave more overtly like controlling Mars. With this, it's much more subtle. It's more like an energy that they feel. Now, in some cases, the Mars person will overtly act in an aggressive way or in an abusive way, but most of this is all just going on like mentally with vibes. That's the thing with the inconjunct, is it's like vibes and sometimes it's external circumstances as well that are preventing them from getting together. But yeah, it can just be a lot of weird vibes, or the Saturn person definitely can feel a lot of fear that the Mars person is too impulsive, fear that the Mars person is not reliable or not up to task, whatever that may be. Like whatever they're working on, or if it's a romantic relationship, or if it's friend, like they just feel like the Mars person might not have the stability, the maturity to be a stable person in their life. So yeah, this is a very tough one, but like I said, you want to look at the other aspects, because if there's some other aspects from the Saturn person's chart to Mars's Mars, then they can have some expression through that, and this won't be so inhibiting or so awkward when we have these other aspects going on. So on the positive, if the Mars person is overly impulsive or rash in any way, this inconjunct is going to curb that, and that can actually be for good. That can be, very beneficial for someone whose Mars is, very strong in like Aries, or, like conjunct to Sun or something. Like if we have a Mars on overload, this quincunx or in conjunction can actually really provide the wisdom and kind of like a grounding energy to the Mars person. So that can be the benefit. And then of course, the Saturn person is attracted to the Mars person's energy, right? If they can just accept that this weird way that the Mars person expresses their Mars is actually something they're very interested in. They want to know the Mars person. There is interest, there is sexual interest with this Quincunx, even though it can be hard to get there. Once you do get there, and with work and with effort, you can actually really understand each other sexually. It takes work with Mars Saturn aspects, especially the inconjunct. But one manifestation of this is that the sexual dynamic is so awkward that like you actually end up asking each other a lot of questions and talking to each other a lot about preferences, or even you end up studying like sexual techniques and things like that because it doesn't come naturally. You work at it, you become like the experts of it in the relationship. So that's one of the manifestations of this. And it's the same with like outer life tasks as well. Like, so you have difficulty working together as far as like the forward motion of your relationship, as far as like direct action, or working together on some project. So all these things are kind of like stalled, right? So then you end up like having to communicate overly, and like really you get closer because of all the blocks and delays and difficulties and how much you have to clarify things, that you end up being kind of like a power couple because you've had to work through everything. And that's what happens with these quincunxes, is like you have to deal with them, you have to resolve this energy, or it's just going to be this underlying tension and difficulty and anxiety. It can produce anxiety, but that's just when it's going on under the surface. When you actually talk about it, and when you have the knowledge of astrology, you are way better off than most people. So you can talk about it like, hey, my Mars in Aries acts like this, and hey, my Saturn in Scorpio acts like this, and you can talk about it and you can communicate, and this can become an asset rather than a debility. So I'd love to know your experience of this aspect in Synastry. If you've had it, let me know in the comments. Like I said, I've had this one because I have natally Mars in conjunct to Saturn. So with whoever I have Mars conjunct Mars, I also have this. So it's definitely, in my case, it's not anything like a deal breaker. It's just bringing up my own kind of natal conflict. But yeah, in those cases, Mars has also been aspecting positively to other things. So anyways, let me know in the comments your experience of this one, and keep those requests coming, you guys. This was requested. Let me know in the comments more requests that you have, and we'll talk soon. Okay, bye.